We are recording. We started the recording of the meeting. Carol is going to chair tonight's meeting. So I have her as the designated chair, but Mr. Jurgel is back, and it's always good to see him back but he'll be just observing as a regular commission member tonight. So we'll note on the minutes that Carol is the acting chairperson. And Chair, as soon as you're ready.
Okay. I will call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. This is December 17th, 2020 at 7 o'clock, and we will begin our meeting with roll call. And Jody, could you call the roll?
Rob Jurgel,
Present.
Carol Wagner,
Present.
Jody Rich here, Richard Brophy,
Absent.
Brian Lewis,
Present.
Mike Saunders,
Present.
and Tim Spiegelglass.
Present.
Okay, so we're all here. We're missing one, as I recall. So because we are doing this on the web, and we have some slightly different rules, and let's go through those this evening, and we'll talk about how we're going to handle public comments. So we have the opportunity this evening for public comments prior to each commission vote. So as we go through each petition, we will have a presentation by staff, and we'll have opportunities for panelists or for people in the audience to talk to us, and then we'll decide what we want to do. At the beginning of the meeting, we'll have some time to address the commission. If you have questions or comments that you'd like to make to the commission that are not on the agenda, that's the time to do it. But if it's on the agenda, please wait for the agenda item. If you want to say something, please raise your hand for recognition, and you'll be transferred to the panelists at my request. And Carlos is going to help me watch to see who's raising their hand. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Keep your comments brief and to the point, and try not to be repetitive. We appreciate it. Please note your name and address, and we urge you to have your video on when you speak. It really does help communication. If public comments to the commission may be submitted in writing and read aloud by staff, and we may have a short delay in the live stream, but just bear with us. Petitioner presentations. All reports and plans are accessible via the link in the agenda. It's embedded in the agenda itself. Staff will provide an overview as we go to each petition. The developer will discuss the staff's comments in the staff report, answer any of the commission's questions, and then we'll take public comments on that particular issue, and we'll conduct all votes as roll call votes. Any questions about any of that? Our initial business is going to be our general public comments. This is the time when we encourage anyone in the public to express any concerns regarding land use or any of the issues that come before the Planning Commission that are not on our agenda this evening. Our comments are open now, and Carlos, do we have any? I want to remind everyone to please keep your comments to 3 minutes.
At this point, I do not see any hand requests. If you can just give us a couple of seconds.
Sure.
Just to confirm. There being none, Chairman, I ask if we can continue.
Okay. The first item on our agenda is going to be a presentation of the Olivet Community Center conceptual plans. This is the new community center that we just adopted, or we just adopted the bond issue, and they're working on the design now for the community center. And Carlos, I believe the architect is going to join us.
Correct. Correct, Chair. I'm going to transfer promote the architect as a panelist, but real quickly, I wanted to kind of go over regarding our strategic plan and the importance of the community center, because this is one of the one of the key areas of the plan and helps of us putting the full plan of being a community defined as a dynamic sense of place and positioning us well within the goals and objectives of the plan. Again, we adopted a strategic plan back in 2006 with the goal or the objective of becoming a dynamic sense of place. In that, the efforts to become a dynamic sense of place encourage the commission to focus on 4 areas. One is about community development, economic development, public spaces, and transportation connections. And within each of these focus areas, there's a variety of objectives to meet those focuses or goals. And there is community developments. We talk about equity and various housing types and options and things of that nature, our identity, our architectural styles. In economic development, we focus on the Olive Boulevard corridor, the industrial parks, and positioning all of that to be a leader within the region in the St. Louis area. And public spaces to define our community as a well-defined community that's attractive, that has a character of its own, where even the sidewalks are unique and distinctive to our community. The spaces that we create before our commercial areas are unique and distinctive and things. And then transportation connections, not necessarily just meaning the general vehicle, but transportation connections both to public transit, to highways, to county road thoroughfares, to pedestrian areas, to the Centennial or Greenway trails, and that to ensure that the community capitalizes and is well connected both north and south of Olive and east and west of Dealman. And that we would focus our, the commission would focus its efforts both in ordinance-wise and in its review based on these. And we've been working through this since, like I said, since 2006. One of the key areas or key issues for the commission was, to reevaluate its community image, and we did that with Chapter 428, our community design standards, to focus on the redevelopment of the I-170 interchange, which we've done that with the Gateway redevelopment area, to focus on Olive Boulevard, which we've done so again with Chapter 428 and with the Olive Boulevard Corridor Master Plan, to focus on our industrial parks, which we've worked closely with our Economic Development Commission to create a database and a network of our industrial parks and have more data of knowing what type of activities that can work here, to coordinate with Metrolink or essentially with public transit. And while we have a role and we're a small portion, we have an agreement and a support of where any future light rail extension would take place, and that is with the University City, and that we would work coordinatedly in the support of that placement in the future, and continue to ensure that Olive Boulevard has a public transportation system, and with that is vital with the 39 North Innovation District and everything that goes on in the WashU campus and down to the Central West End. Wi-Fi, which was about telecommunications infrastructure, and uniquely back in 2006 is trying to figure out what they're going to do with Saints. At that time, that's how it was referred to, but it was really Worson Park. We had the abandoned former skating rink that was once an ice rink, and it went through a process in the strategic plan that the city needed to make some decisions of the future of this the Saints structure, but kind of focusing that on the building, but it really had to do with Worson Park. And these things do feed upward into the policy levels and such, and help on the legislative side that eventually the building was raised. We went through different variations and studies, at least in the past 18 years, of what to do with the existing community center and the park. And then once Beverly Tucker Knight, who's our Parks and Recreation Director, came in. She spearheaded the effort to create a master parks plan. And in that plan, again, there was a community discussion regarding community center services, both the existing building and potential or possibilities of a future building. And that has been taken to the next step in here. And what I'd like to do, Chairman, is note we're going to have a presentation of the proposed community center. It is in the Warson Park grounds. Warson Park grounds are Zone PA Public Activity District, and park and recreation efforts are permitted use by right, meaning so there's no site plan review criteria for this, but as a courtesy, we're bringing this forward to the commission. We've been active in partnering through the review to ensure that it's compliant with the Chapter 400 zoning regulation setbacks, inquiries with the parking and things. Also that it complies with the Chapter 420 stream buffer protection regulations, because we have the beginning of the River de Pere on the northwest end of the site, that it meets our stormwater management processes, and more importantly, that it complies with our community design requirements, and even to the extent to Chapter 428, which is really the design requirements and criteria for the Olive Boulevard corridor, but the architect and the design team under Ms. Knight have been pretty sensitive to the city's Chapter 428 design criteria and taking the materials, the massing, the voids and all that into consideration in there. So it's a pretty exciting building. For me, of course, it's exciting because it's another check off on our strategic plan of accomplishments. And I am now going to transfer over our city manager, Ms. Sondag, Ms. Tucker Knight, who is our Parks and Recreation Director, and then also Katie Adholt, which is with the team, I think serving as our general contract or project manager for that process. And I believe all three have been transferred over.
Oh, great.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I believe we may have a couple other folks. The engineers are with us. Who is it going to be, Katie?
Sure, I think it should be Joel Kirshen and Aaron Kiesler with KAI.
And if I could just, if you can see those folks, Carlos, so we can bring them on just in case there are any questions. We won't all talk, don't worry. Katie Aholt will be doing the presentation. I just wanted to tee it up a little bit. Katie is with Navigate Building Solutions. They are the project manager on this project. You may recognize the name Navigate. They were the project manager for the city center. And so we had a different project manager with Navigate, wore Jen out. And so we got Katie so that we can work her to the bones. And also with us, Aaron and Joel, they are with KAI. KAI is the engineering architecture firm that has been hired for this project. And I want to just point out they're on board for the full park and community center project. They have partnered with DTLS for landscaping services. So we could fill up the whole screen with the number of folks who are helping us on this project. Because it's not just a building. It is it's one new building, but it is all 5 of our parks. And one of the things that has also happened over the same period of time is Great Rivers Greenway has made movement on the Centennial Greenway. The Centennial Greenway is the greenway that connects at 170. That's where it currently ends, and goes through Olivet, up the old railroad spur, running east-west along the north side through Indian Meadows Park, and then into Warson Park. That is that is a very exciting project. That was a council goal as well. Carlos has talked about some of the connectivity and issues and goals that we've had. And one of the things that these two projects converging at the same time has allowed us is really to coordinate those projects. And in fact, the council approved an agreement with GRG on Tuesday night, in which the city will actually be the construction, will do the construction management, the construction for this part of the Centennial Greenway going through Warson Park. Furthermore, in that agreement, we've agreed that Navigate Building Solutions will continue as the project manager for the Centennial Greenway, as well as for the community center and our parks. And even to more to our advantage, DTLS, the landscape firm that I talked about earlier that's working on our parks project, is also the firm that is working with Great Rivers Greenway on the Centennial Greenway. And so I don't think we could have asked for any better of a convergence of things to happen at one time, to have this opportunity to really look at this at the Greenway and how it fits into our park plans and how it fits into our community center. So you're going to be seeing a lot of these same faces over the next several months, as we are completing we've completed the schematic design and the conceptual design. We are going to be moving. We're hoping we're in our design, getting towards our final design now. We hope to have, we'll be having some public meetings in January for both the parks and the community center. And then we're hoping that we'll be coming before this body as we move towards actual construction. And so with that, I thought it was important for you to know, tonight we're looking at the community center, but there's been a lot of work going on all five with regard to all five of the parks and with regard to this new building. And so with that, thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Katie. And
Katie, before we start, I can either transfer you if you want to operate it from your computer, or if you want me to move the slides as you talk or as you speak.
You're muted, Katie.
Here we go. I have it open here on my computer if you don't mind transferring, and then I'll share my screen.
Okay, I think you should be good to go.
Okay, well, thank you all for inviting us here tonight to talk about this project. I think Carlos touched on the vision and the goals. Barb also mentioned that a little bit, but I'm hoping what you'll see here tonight is really, the convergence of all of those things happening for the city of Olivet. So it's exciting to see where we are in the process, and happy to share with you tonight. So I think what we want to touch on is the community center site itself and how that fits into the overall Warson Park concept. We'll review the Centennial Greenway alignment, and then we'll go back into the community center. I'm calling it the design review. So we'll show you what the floor plan looks like, so you can understand kind of the interior of the space, and then how that gets reflected to the exterior in terms of materials and finishes that have been selected for the building. So Warson Park today, here's kind of what you see. So this is a pretty recent aerial. There are several existing assets that we are working to maintain and use to our advantage in this case for the construction of the new community center. So we have the drive access from Warson Road that takes us into the park. There's a turnaround, an existing parking lot as well that we are planning to reuse for the new community center. There is the existing park house and maintenance yard that is also accessed off of Warson Road and is tucked up on the hillside, kind of overlooking the former site of the ice skating rink. We have the current community center to the south, accessed off of Grandview. So zooming in a little bit on the community center site, we are reutilizing the former site of the old ice skating rink. The new building that we are in design for right now is a single-story building, approximately 27,500 gross square feet. Like I mentioned, it does reuse the current drive lane from Warson. The project does include mill and overlay of that road and some partial replacement of sidewalks. So we are able to use kind of the base of what's there, but we'll be making some improvements to that as part of the project. We will also be supplementing the existing parking lot with an additional new parking lot that's adjacent to the building that will provide ADA accessible parking spaces, and also will get us to some connectivity with the GRG Centennial Greenway. So overall, we're looking at about 120 existing parking spaces with the addition of 37 new to get us to a total parking count of 157. So the Centennial Greenway alignment, you'll see here a kind of a color-coded map. This is a map that we've been working with our project teams to understand project limits. So as Barb mentioned, we kind of have multiple improvements happening simultaneously, but there's still some accounting and things that need to be done behind the scenes. So what you see here is the map that we've generated that outlines the perimeters of our projects. So the green area represents the Centennial Greenway, currently planned to stop over at Warson Road to the west. And for the sake of this presentation, it will turn north and head east into Indian Meadows and connect beyond. The Greenway will provide an opportunity to access the headwaters of the River Des Peres. So that's kind of a unique feature to this area. We are planning for a new maintenance facility actually to the south of the park. And what this does is allows us to demolish the existing park house, eliminate the old retaining wall. That's a 3-tier retaining wall and in very poor shape at this time. We'll be able to grade out a nice slope with some plantings that will connect kind of up from the trail down towards the community center site itself. So elimination of the retaining wall and that gentle grading of slope, we think really kind of connects these two spaces together. We will have an ADA accessible path that will provide north-south park connectivity. That's something that the park does not have today. So going back to the vision, of transportation and connectivity, that plays nicely into aiding the ADA access across the park. We will have trailhead amenities at the parking lot with a connection to the greenway. So this will be things like bike repair, bike storage, trash recycling, and really just a stopping point that people can use to get on and off the trail. One other thing I'll note here is that we are working with the design team for the Greenway, as well as our civil engineers on a shared stormwater strategy, just to make sure we're not putting in more or multiple areas for stormwater treatment when we can kind of consolidate the needs of all projects from a maintenance standpoint. So this slide kind of takes us back out on the view. So I mentioned on the left-hand side here is the terminus of the Centennial Greenway and its current plan at Warson Road. The Greenway works with the existing contours of the park and the topography and just kind of provides a nice meandering path. It will approach the community center and get a little bit closer here towards the southwest corner before it climbs up the hill. And then passes what is a future item for the city in the vision plan, a community garden. From there, it'll go back down the hill. I mentioned the kind of the trailhead connection here to the southeast corner of the parking lot before the Greenway aligns with a current path that's existing in the park today and then turns north towards Indian Meadows. Right, so the next slide here shows you the floor plan as it stands today for the community center. Like I mentioned, it's about a 27,500 square foot building with multiple spaces for community, to gather and share. We've had a discussion today about, we want this to be a place where people can come sit and drink a cup of coffee and read the newspaper or play a card game, or come in inclement weather and be able to walk a path through the building and still feel like they can get some exercise in. So this plan represents those things. When you come in the vestibule of the building, there will be a welcome desk and also a fireplace area. And then beyond that will just be a stretch of lobby that has informal clusters of seating. The seating can be flexible and rearranged to accommodate, various needs or various activities that are going on in the space. To the top of the page here, you'll see an indoor playground. So this is one of the unique features of this facility, and really, I think will be an attraction for people even outside of the Olivet area to come explore what this facility has to offer. The zone you see here in orange is a cluster of offices. So this will be for Parks and Rec staff to support both the facility and what's going on in the greater park system in Olivet. We have a cluster of changing rooms and shower rooms for those people that are partaking in fitness or aerobic activities. And then to the west of the building here you'll see the aerobics and fitness areas. The large block of space to the south is the gymnasium. So we will have the ability to have full court basketball games as well as cross court volleyball. Center cluster here, we get into restrooms that will support some of the more public spaces. You'll see in green here, we have a teaching kitchen similar to what was designed and installed at COCA. That can be used for classes or informal gatherings, and also could potentially be used as a catering kitchen to support activities that take place in the multi-purpose room. So this larger space here is the multi-purpose room. I think we're targeting a capacity of about 130 occupants in that space when it is full open. It is subdividable, so it will be able to be used for smaller classes or activities in support of a variety of needs for the community. The last space you see here is in gray. This is the back of house space for mechanical, electrical, IT, and those types of spaces that are needed to support the building. From here, I'm going to turn it over to Joel and Aaron and then let them walk you through the exterior elevations and process surrounding the material selection.
Thanks, Katie. I'm Joel Kirshen, project manager for KAI on this project. And with me tonight is Aaron Kiesler. Aaron is the director of architecture. And so I was going to since Aaron was very deeply involved with this and will do a better job of explaining his thoughts, Aaron, I'm going to let you get into the details here and walk us through the exterior of the building.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone for having us to show the design of the building. That the design team and the city and the Parks and Rec Commission or Parks and Rec Committee have been very collaborative on, and it's been an awesome process to work with everyone. So this is a view of the front entrance of the building that you would see from the parking lot. However, in the next slide is actually what you would first see as you enter the park. But we wanted the entrance to the building to be open and kind of funnel the community into the building through natural materials of the stone and wood look metal panel, and then using a contrasting color of a charcoal gray metal panel, kind of to help follow some form and function of the building, but also start to tie into the natural setting of the park as well. So the wood that you see there is a wood look metal panel, not actual wood. And that was decided both by the design team as well as the city for durability and budget reasons as well to stick within the allotted budget. The main entrance to the building is a green metal panel, kind of framed entrance that has a theme as it carries throughout the building from one end to the other and ties through the interior as well. So it's conceptually like a portal that brings you into the building, carries you through the main lobby and down throughout the whole building, and then out through the fitness on the other end, which we'll tie together in another rendering. But this entry plaza connects to the parking lot for an accessible path. And then to the left of the building where the multi-purpose rooms have a paved patio that would be able to open up and have extend the event from the indoor to the outdoor as well. So the playground design, we wanted to be purposefully playful with that. So we took a square form, pulled the roof up, put some clear story glass there, angled the roof in plan and tilted it in two directions, kind of pushed down on one corner. So it tilts in two ways, plus in plan, it's angled. And there's, like I said, it was purposely playful in the intent. And then kind of one of those after the fact things, it kind of felt like a kid's toy box that, is stuffed full of toys and they just couldn't get the lid closed. And it's kind of the marquee part of the building that is one of the first things you see as well as you drive up from the entrance to the building through the park. So you can go on to the next slide, please. So as you pull up from Morrison into the park and up to the community center, this would be that corner of the building. The actual entry drive is a little bit lower in elevation from this. But here you can see that green portal that would tie the entry to the building through the fitness. So the corner of the building you're seeing here is the fitness room. And then to the left of that, the next form is the aerobics room. Then the stone mass form next to that is the changing suites. Then tucked between that and the playground that you see at the end is the office suite area. And then in the background, we settled on a lighter gray metal panel for the gym so that it kind of it fades away into the background and it's not the forefront for that to keep the building at a better scale than a 30-foot tall gymnasium within the park. Next slide, please. So around the exterior or the backside of the building, if you want to call it that, the quote unquote backside of the building, we definitely wanted to pay attention to that and working with the city, both Parks and Rec and the mayor. We wanted to pay, we didn't want to just call it the backside of the building and leave it as the backside of the building. We wanted to put a design to it. So the same materials that you see on the front are carried around the back, with the exception of, instead of using the stone veneer that you see on the front, we're doing a split face CMU on the back here. That would be the same color palette, just a more cost-effective material. But with the GRG trail coming behind the building, there's going to be a ton of public, both Olivet residents and out-of-town residents that are going to be riding their bike or walking or running past the backside of the building here. So it didn't want to just be, like I said, a quote unquote backside of the building. We wanted to carry the same material palette around. And here's a better shot of the multi-purpose room patio where events could come in and come out. That could be a part of the package as well, of people renting the space. The two doors you see back here inset in the wood look metal panel. One of those is a corridor, service corridor, and then the other is the back of house kitchen entrance. So catering companies would park at the parking lot, wheel their equipment around the building and go in there, and that would be their access, so that they're not coming through the front door or through the multi-purpose room. But they would have a dedicated entrance and exit there. And then you can see the scale of the gym in comparison to the rest of the building, and that's why we elected to go with the lighter gray metal panel, so that on the from the other side it kind of is more of a background and backdrop instead of a prominent form in your face. Next slide, please. So here's a arrangement of the color palettes. The green metal panel is still, we're fine tuning the exact color of green, but conceptually using a green. And then the charcoal and light gray metal panel, along with the split face CMU and the dry stack stone veneer, and then the wood look metal panel as well. Next slide, please. So if any questions or feedback, would love to hear from you guys.
Anyone have any comments?
If I might just add just a couple of things. One of the things that we were trying to do was we wanted to bring some connection between the city center and the community center, but we didn't want the community center to look more, like a government building. We wanted it to be warm. We wanted it to be welcoming. Beverly was very keen on trying to bring the natural, the woods and the stone into play here. Those are also will be carried throughout the interior of the building as well. And so I think that, I think Beverly can speak for herself, but her goal is, again, that warm, inviting place to be, both from kind of when you're approaching it from the outside, as well as carrying that forward into the inside.
I did have one question or one comment to make. And it's the location of that roof, the ladder, roof ladder for the gym. And it looks like when you're looking, kind of straight on the building, it looks like you can see it right above the entrance. So I wasn't sure if that could be slid down or moved so it wouldn't be as prominent. And I noticed it on the cover of the drawings.
We've talked about that. I know we talked about that in our meeting, and I can't remember, Katie or Aaron, if you remember where we ended with that, because that was something we noticed on the actual kind of drawings.
Yeah, it's
Or
on the cover
plans.
sheet.
Yeah, the plans.
And then the only other comment that I had with the gym, is there going to be any natural light, that's, going to be let in kind of in the, in the ceilings or, kind of the upper walls? And
Yes, there is. Yeah.
Okay.
We have a series of skylights included that is over the gym specifically. And then we are also trying to incorporate a, if you will, a bit of a light shelf running down one edge of that center lobby space, to where there will be some natural light coming into one edge of that lobby space up against the gym. What we're working with now is to keep the edge of the gym that is open, that is along the lobby, open, using one of the newer glass products. And so there'll be a lot of visibility there. And then where that center gathering space, that living room space there is up abuts the gym, there'll be some slope glazing up at the roof that will then start to allow light in there too.
Great. Well, from my perspective, it looks beautiful. It looks great. I'm very excited about it.
I had a quick question, and I know Commissioner Saunders is going to hate this question, and I respect that, but I'm curious about the parking, 150 spaces. I'm just thinking, what is the occupancy of the building? Because if there are big events being held there, plus soccer games on the fields or baseball games, is 150 enough? Not that I want a lot of parking. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to invite more concrete, but I'm just worried that we're maxing out because if you can't park there, no one's parking on Warson, so what other options do we have? I'm foreseeing a very successful community center, so I want to make sure we're, not limiting ourselves. So
I'll tell you, parking on these projects has been it's kind of been a bear for us, because you're not really looking at occupancy and such. You're looking at what things are going to be taking place at the same time and those types of things. So one of the things, so that we will keep some parking off of Grandview for the athletic field. So that will be another way for people to access the athletic fields. But to be honest, parking is something we're continuing to talk about, and we will be meeting with Carlos actually on that to help us figure out both if, for any insight into what he thinks we might need, but also compliance and those type of things. And that is a conversation we'll be having for all of our parks.
yeah, and I've been there for soccer games alone, and before, no use of the community center, and that parking lot is at the bottom is 80% full and 60% full up top, and that's just using the grass. But if you have a successful event or a yoga class going on, with a basketball game going on, with soccer games going on, with another yoga, another class or a speech, I could see it filling up. And again, I just don't know what other options, because you don't want people parking in the neighborhoods and you can't park on Warson. So I just throwing it out there.
Right. And we're also cognizant about how much of our park do we really want to pave. Any further pavement would be on our field. So yeah. So
Agreed. I
get the question. Yeah. Believe me, we've been struggling with it, and we continue to say to Joel and to Aaron, well, fix this and tell us exactly what will be perfect. And they just haven't been listening. I don't know.
Haven't got there yet. We keep trying.
Ouch, Barb.
Actually, I think we've decided that 157 is perfect.
Good answer.
Hey, so this is Mike. I just one question and one comment. Where do you envision all the HVAC equipment going? Will it be rooftop?
Yes.
Any thoughts about how it's going to be screened?
Yes. So from the slides that were presented, that was at the end of schematic design, and now we're actually just 2 weeks away from the end of design development. So in that 2 to 3 months or whatever it's been, there's been quite a bit of thought put into that, where the RTU locations are and how they would be screened. Doing a bunch of perspective studies. I guess
it occurs to me that the trail that's proposed for the south side is elevated, so you're going to be looking down at this building. And I think that I appreciate the work you've done on that south elevation, but to me it still looks like a back elevation. So I'm not how worried we are about what that image along that side, but I do think that maybe some more thinking might be a little bit, see what other options are. I think generally it's nice, but to me that looks like that's definitely the backside of the building. So.
And I appreciate that comment, Mike. We've again we've gone through we probably have more iterations of the back than we have of the front. To be honest with you, part of the issue is somebody asked about the windows. It's really Beverly and the assistant director, Don LaChance, have both been, they've had gyms where there've been windows and that people can't have a lot of difficulty playing volleyball, playing basketball with the various sun. And then you can buy the windows. There are things you can do to help it, but they're really out of our price range. So how to, what we really have is we have a big wall. We've talked about what other things we could do. We've talked with, GRG about it as well. One of the things that's nice, because we do have these are happening at the same time. Every other week we meet just to talk about, our project, the city's project. And then the off weeks, we actually meet with GRG, and we have, where the different architects and folks can get together. And so we've talked about that too. And so it's been difficult. The lower portion there to the right, which would be, I guess, to the east, those are storage closets in the multipurpose room. And so that again causes us some hardship. There's not another place to put them, because you've got, on the east side, you have the patio. On the west side of that room, you have the kitchen. And then you have the hallway, which we're trying to do with glass. So it's been a struggle. Well, if you any thoughts you might have.
Well, it occurs to me, that's a loading dock back there. You talked about the caterers bringing stuff back in there, but maybe just a simple canopy back there to sort of break it up and put some shadow lines on it. I don't know that windows is the answer. I agree with you, about the light. But it's pretty flat and there's no shadow lines. And I don't know that I'm not looking to spend more money than is budgeted, but just putting some overhangs on those windows, or just sort of breaking it up with some shadow lines, I think would help quite a bit. So
That's
Is
great.
is the split face cost savings measure? I mean, because it definitely seems like a cheaper material that's on the back side, I guess, as opposed to the rest of the 3 sides or multiple sides.
So I'll speak to that. When we put the budget together, we had basically a cost per square foot allowance for the exterior skin that we were trying to work within. So some of the materials that have been selected, like the stacked stone and the wood look metal panel, kind of hit on the higher end of that cost per square foot. Therefore, we kind of have to offset with some materials that are less, just more as a balancing act than anything. So yes, I think the CMU is definitely more cost-effective option, and helps offset the cost and allows us to have more area of the materials like the stone and the wood look panel on the front of the building. One thing I was going to add too, on looking at the rear elevation, I think what is not shown there is we are currently planning for a bioretention area that's also going to be along that sidewalk and towards the back of the building. So there will be some landscaping and some other elements here that I think will bring interest to the eye. So I think this looks a little blank right now without that being shown, but there will be a nice area of some natural plantings that will be a little bit of a buffer too between the trail and the building.
And I wanted to add to that, the part of the concept of bringing the trail up to the top there was allowing us to help screen the building from the trail and the roof of the building, knowing that the trail is essentially at the lower level elevation, lower level roof elevation, by using plantings there to help screen the building there, and then balancing that with the budget so that we can put the money towards the actual roof mechanical screens on the other sides of the building, and then trying to use natural plantings as a closer screen versus a unit screen on the building.
Anybody else? Erin, do you have anything else you want to talk with us about?
I don't think so. We appreciate your time tonight. Some great questions and great feedback. So Thank you
Oh,
all.
I have one quick question.
Oh, we were so close.
So you can't go with addressing this question. So I have a question about schedule. You know, I mean, this looks terrific. So when will we see it in the ground?
Sure. So great question. As Aaron mentioned, we are currently wrapping up what's called the design development phase of the documents. The plan is to have those wrapped up here after the first of the year. And then the phase following that is what's called construction documents. So that's when we'll actually start detailing out, very specific components of the building. It's our goal to have that package wrapped up by the beginning of May. So May is when we will submit for permitting, start preparing the package for general contractor bidding, and really start transferring from design into construction. So we're anticipating bidding through summer of 2021 next year, and contractor mobilization in August. So hopefully late next summer, we'll start seeing some dirt moving around and some big activity. So I think that's exciting. And then in terms of overall schedule duration, right now we're looking at late 2022 to have everything wrapped up. We think there is potential that the building could be completed prior to that, but landscaping is such a heavy component of this project since we're working throughout the park. So we want to make sure we don't cut ourselves short and try to utilize that late planting season in the fall of 2022 to really wrap things up.
It sounds like a terrific schedule. Great. Well, anybody have anything else? Well, thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you. And we will be, we're close to finishing up conceptual design on our parks, on the 5 parks. We will be having a public meeting on those as well. And so we will be back, and kind of really excited to show you those as well.
Terrific. Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all have a good holiday, safe, healthy New Year. We'll see you in 2021.
All right.
Okay. Carlos, I think we're ready to move on to old business.
And just 1 second, because I think I just dropped the whole meeting here. Here we go.
Okay. So item A under old business is the Birdie Lane preliminary subdivision plat. Properties include 9411 Old Bottom Road and 9415 Old Bottom Road. The petition type is subdivision. We're looking at an 8-lot, single-family residential subdivision. The petitioner is Harry Freeman of Freeman Homes, and the property owners are Stephen and Diana Eastep.
Chairman, of course, this has been before the commission at our November meeting and at our earlier meeting in December also. So I'm just going to go a quick overview for those who haven't had an opportunity to look at the plans or the improvements. But this is a subdivision of the 2 long linear lots that go north to south off of Old Bottom. Address is 9411 and 9415 Old Bottom Road. They're just 1 lot west of the intersection of Old Bottom and Dealman on the northern side. There are 2 existing homes that have been on these 2 lots for quite some time. They're being combined and re-subdivided into a minor subdivision plat. A minor subdivision plat is a plat that is 10 lots or less, and it benefits from some leniencies regarding to some of the makeup in terms of the street distance, street width, and sidewalk requirements. But it still has to abide and promote the strategic plan. In their preliminary discussions, they knew that within these 2 properties, there was an opportunity to carve up to 10 lots. But when you take into consideration the infrastructure, including streets, stormwater, and such, they were able to establish 8 new single-family residential lots with 2 sizable detention areas in there that we've kind of discussed, and we'll go over in just a second a little bit more. So this is the location. It's kind of nestled between Dillman Road on the eastern side and White Rose Lane on the western side, but it's two interior lots, so they don't have any direct access outside of along the south of Old Bonham. The purpose and intent of our subdivision code is to ensure orderly development, to protect and to conserve value, both the buildings and improvements and adjacent properties, to ensure proper legal descriptions and documentations. Most importantly, to make sure that they're buildable, properly oriented, and adequately infrastructured with services and facilities for these lots. We establish standards for design and ensure that there's a beneficial relationship between the location and orientation of the lots, the street system, specifically to ensure that safe access and maneuvering of emergency vehicles is provided. This is kind of rotating those two lots on their side now, with the south being on my left-hand side, north being on my, south being on my right-hand side, north being on my left-hand side. And again, White Rose is down here at the bottom, Dillman Road up on the top. And I just flipped everything. Again, now Old Bonham Road, which is the south, is on the left. And you can access the subdivision off a new street that would be extended north to south with a cul-de-sac. And again, there would be two lots, a common ground, and then four more lots, 4, 5, and 6, and then a common ground, and then lots 7, 8 here at the cul-de-sac terminus. And they're under this configuration, they would be limited to 8 lots. Again, without the common grounds or looking at other alternatives for the street, that there was a potential for to maximizing up to 10. We even had discussions about rezoning and density on the site, but in the end, the petition that they submitted was for the 8-lot subdivision and providing those 2 common ground spaces on that. So our general strategic plan goals are, of course, community identity, economic development, transportation connections, open spaces. We talked about those earlier. I'm going to go through. The property is zoned single-family residential, and that's to provide for the construction of new detached single-family residences. And the minimum requirements for dimensional criteria are 15,000 square feet, 100-foot width of frontage, and 150-foot depth, in which these 8 lots fully provide. And there. From our previous discussions, of course, there's been a lot of focus on Lot 1, and we'll talk about the changes that have been incorporated. There was some discussions of the measuring of the widths for Lots 7 and 8. We've had discussions about the common ground and the landscaping that would be associated with that. Stormwater, looking at it from a macro level, because the common grounds that are being provided are really stormwater detentions that would help facilitate stormwater, but they're more from the metropolitan sewer district level. So they're looking at it, not just how that stormwater is impacting within the subdivision itself, but also the adjacent areas. So they're kind of looking at it at a macro level, and where their detention systems will help and improve stormwater as you go down, how it takes in stormwater from the higher elevation areas, which are in the west, and then how it takes it in and minimizes the stormwater as it impacts the properties to the lower levels, which are on east, specifically along Dillman Road. And the lot configure, the way this is designed too, by putting the street along the lower side or on the south side, it helps balance that process in there and minimizes stormwater disruptions along the south. Now, along the east of Dillman. Now, note, they are in a lower elevation, and stormwater will find its way to continue going down or downhill. But this should minimize, any adverse impacts in there. They will still continue to get some groundwater flows that continue on there, but not in terms of what would be impacted or created by the development itself. And then there's stormwater regarding the micro level, and that includes our chapter 422, where each individual lot has to provide its own detention systems. We'll talk about how that's going to be addressed. And then there was a retaining wall along the east lot line. So on the eastern side, roughly behind a couple of properties off of Dillman Road, that would be proposed under that new street. So long story short, this is the lot one that's been discussed by the commission at its past couple of meetings. And specifically, there was the issue regarding the design of the new home. And when you look at it from that perspective, that's kind of step 5 in this process, if there was a series of steps. But the design of the home actually takes place once the lot's created, and it goes through community design review, which is our chapter 425, which our residential redevelopment design guidelines come into play, and the commission has authority over the design. But I think the commission's made it very clear in terms of their expectations of when this design comes in for this new home. Right now, we're looking at a preliminary plat and whether this lot can be subdivided and it's specific to that. On the other end, from a staff perspective, that the issues regarding design, though they come in later, the more narrow of a lot you have, the more restricted in the design you would be. So we, from our end, we have been trying to coordinate and work with the developer, finding opportunities or ways to deepen the north-south depth of lot 1, therefore providing, more opportunities in the design that comes down, like I said, further down, and that's what we would call step 5 of the process. The narrower the lot, the more restricted we are, the more creative a designer would have to be. The more depth we have in that lot, and again, this is going from north to south, the better ability that the constrictions of the lot won't drive the design, and that the design can better accommodate that lot in there. And I hope that makes sense, because again, I think there's been two issues that we've been going round and round with. One is, again, the design and appearance, which really is addressed further down the road. And 2 is, is there enough depth in this lot to accommodate the type of the design or the goal of a design that the commission's kind of been discussing. So since our last meeting, we've been talking with the developer. I had a week to contemplate it while I was out, but I know Jonathan met with the developer and the petitioner and had discussions. And then today we continue further discussions, and we received the revisions that we're going to present to you tonight, which I think finally get to addressing the point that we're trying to get. Again, this upper slide here represents the existing configuration that's been before the commission. What they've done is that they have not narrowed the detention basin, but they've narrowed down the common ground of the detention area. So the boundaries have become narrowed down, but this is still the same width between walls here that you see in the former plans. We're able to shift the property line for lot 2 northward towards the detention area, and flip the driveway and the house here on lot 2, which allowed lot 1 to be further extended inward. And now when you look at the property, and of course we're trying to do design in a preliminary plat of a house, but that really comes down into step 5. But you can see in the typical footprint that they've been showing for reflecting housing units on this property, now they actually have excess area here. You can see the 25-foot setback line. Now there's actually more space there to allow an opportunity for greater flexibility with the design as we get to the individual house, which is still down the road. So I think, again, from a staff perspective, we've been looking at it that if we have more depth, there's more design opportunity. I think from the commission, they've been looking at it is that there is an importance to the community and its values to have a residential design that addresses both the street and may also address the internal street that would be there. But through this, I think, again, we minimize the lot constraints driving the design, that now that the design can have better flexibility to drive what would happen with the new home there, as opposed to being restricted by those setbacks. So I hope that kind of addresses the commission. I know there's 2 different things in there, but they're kind of playing this tug of war type of process. But I think in the end, the developer has made a commitment to kind of to try to balance this issue with what they have and try to reshift these lots in an effort to meet our goals and our values in there. And I do appreciate them working with us in there. And those revisions you also received, they address how they're doing the measurements for lots 7 and 8. And there, we still know that here's that retaining wall that, again, not a preliminary plat issue, but more a construction issue, will be restricted to be a tiered wall as opposed to a singular wall. They would like to pursue a singular wall, which is okay. However, the commission doesn't have the authority to grant that, but that's not part of the process of the preliminary plat. I think the commission we're looking from the commission that if they want to pursue just a single wall, that they would apply for a variance, and if that's granted, they would continue. If it's not granted, that then that wall would be split into two tiers. Why are they looking at it to be split into 2 tiers? One is because there's a frame garage that's built here on one of these properties off of Dealman. That frame garage was granted a variance to be built right on the lot line. And again, I don't, not being here when that was said, and I don't know the hardships and the information that was provided at the time, but it's now, that variance has now necessitated a possibility, the need of another variance to be accommodated in the subdivision. And I think that's okay. The reason that they would prefer not to tier it is they can provide enough setback for that garage that was built too close, that was built right on the property line, as opposed to trying to shift this and have an impact on that frame garage there. It's always one of these things, again, there was a decision to grant the variance. That variance is now leading to another need for a variance, and that's why variances should be limited. I'm not sure what the hardship was. There must have been something there, or there must have been a mindset that, well, nothing's ever going to happen back here, so why can't I build onto the property line? I don't know, but now I'm faced with the reality of how that wall would accommodate or address this. One is, again, they can tier it into 2 sections or provide an ample setback in exchange for just one wall. I hope that makes, trying to articulate if that makes some sense in there, but that's not a decision the commission will have. All the commission can do is consent, consent their continued pursuit of that wall through the Board of Adjustment. And if it doesn't, they're going to have to break it up into 2 pieces in there. That becomes an administrative aspect when we go in through the subdivision improvement plans. So we've looked at the various design standards for land development. These are part of the permitting process of how their lots were designed, the blocks, the streets, the sidewalks, utilities and drainage easements, site grading, erosion controls, landscaping, monuments, markers, common grounds, and all these other additional things. And I think the plans that have been that are finalized today seem to address those issues. The rest are administrative issues in terms of, as we go through the permitting process, we'll have to go through. At that point, again, I'm going to be glad to answer any commission questions regarding, what we tried to do with this lot 1 and lot 2, because it seemed like that a majority of the discussions that have taken place has really been focused on those. And, we're hoping that, working with the developer and this collaborative response of reducing the common ground area and increasing the width of lot 1 will help, would be sufficient to address what the commission's concerns were. We think from a staff perspective, that gives greater flexibility because the lot was really constrained. And I think that was, to me, more of a concern because that would limit some creativity on there. Now I have a lot that it is a corner lot, but it's an oversized lot compared to the other lots, and would have more opportunities to provide some flexibility in that design, specifically the Old Bonham design. Chair, before continuing on, and I know Jonathan has had other discussions. I'd like him to address some of his comments and thoughts as he had assisted in putting together that report.
Sure.
So, but first, before going on, again, I'd like to focus because we're trying to get this lot 1 addressed, and it seems, in terms of holistically, the subdivision as a whole, this has been the holdup.
Anybody have any questions for Carlos at this point before we hear from Jonathan?
This is Mike. If I could ask one comment, one question, and Carlos, I 100% agree, and I think this does give the flexibility that it addresses some of our concerns we expressed in previous meetings. So I appreciate the developer and your efforts to get it resolved. We've heard some comments about the east property line with one of the adjacent neighbors and some discrepancy about that. Has that been resolved?
Correct. As we go through the final subdivision plat, they will get a written legal description of the property boundaries. Those will be, signed and they're reviewed and signed and sealed by a surveyor, and that's part of the platting process to ensure that we have a proper legal description. If there are any specific discrepancies, we can have the surveyor or the petitioner and his surveyor coordinate and meet with that property owner as we prepare that, as the final document is being prepared. So it is noted. We will take a look at it.
So this
in there.
Yeah. So this preliminary plat's not based on a survey done with title work in mind. Is that?
It has, and I'll let the surveyor or the engineer speak a little bit more to it in there. But they have gone out there and surveyed the properties. They've conducted their title work and research. It's going to be more of a discussion of, I think, making sure that the identifications of each of the property corners is identified along the east lot line. I'm not sure which of the three properties starting from Old Bottom Road off of
I don't
Gilman.
recall either. Yeah. So, I just remember it coming up with one of the property owners making a comment.
But it's more of a visual thing to make sure to look at the stakes that were in there to determine whether there is any visual discrepancies, because ultimately it becomes a civil dispute if they believe that the surveyor has mismeasured in there many times. And again, and not having the direct discussions on this yet. It's a matter of what I think is where the property line should be, or I thought it was always there, to legally where is it established. And I think, meeting with them, with the markers out there and looking at it first visually, and then seeing if there is a contestant against it, to look at the legal documents.
Okay. Mike, does that answer your question?
Well, I don't know that the question's answered. I guess it's to be answered, whether there's any issues out there. Yeah. So, but it sounds like there's a plan to address it. So.
Yes.
Carol, I had one question.
Rob, go ahead.
Carlos, I know I'm getting caught up to speed on this, but how tall is that retaining wall that's on the east side of
At the midpoint, it hits a maximum of 8 feet.
Okay.
I believe. And again, I can verify, Jonathan, I'm not sure if you're on or not, but I believe it is 8 feet.
I believe it's 8 feet. It might possibly be 10 in a case in a section, but I would have to double check on that.
There's a section in the code that any wall in excess of 4 feet has to be tiered, or is it 5 feet?
5 feet.
Yeah, no wall should exceed a height of 5 feet in this case. There is a dip, and you can see why those detention systems are right in this area. Is where the highest point of the wall is at.
8 feet.
Is there going to be a fence on there, Carlos?
It depends. It
says fence.
Okay.
It says proposed retaining wall with fence.
With fence, yes. I know from a building code perspective, it depends on whether that's a walkable path. There is a roadway right adjacent to it, but it depends on what that distance is. But in this case, they're showing that they would put a fence on top of the wall. And if we can verify that with a petitioner, and after some questions.
Jonathan, did you want to talk with us?
I think Mr. Trejo did a nice job going over most items. I just wanted to note on lot one, there's this little arc that's along Old Bottom Road that's going to be straightened out. The petitioners, one of the items that we have, so that's lot one there, and you can see where the current apron of the road is there, so that's going to be straightened out, and the city would have to, there's a vacation aspect that would have to go into play there. The Steph wants to stress the common ground area, and just although there are landscaping requirements, and I know Mr. Freeman on previous meetings shared a lot of nice landscaping that was on the street side, but also the common ground areas being that 13-foot width, but also the stormwater areas, hopefully the expectation is a little bit more emphasis than just plain grass, but put emphasis on there. The petitioners have also put what the Chapter 405 subdivision regulations calls a pedestrian way, where if there's opportunities to connect to any parks, walking trails, Olive Boulevard, commercial areas, or schools, and whatnot, take advantage of it. So in this case, they are putting an easement and that curbs around one of the common grounds and around lot 7, if a future connection were to be made. So, but with that said, I believe that is all I have at the moment.
Carol, I have one question. Again,
Rob?
how deep is the retaining wall between lots 2 and 3? Or no, I'm sorry, how deep is the retention, water retention, and then the retaining walls on either side?
I believe it gets up to, at that point, it's 5 feet. So I'm going to look at it right now. I believe those two are both 5 feet. So by building code, I believe they would definitely need some type of railing or guardrail, just so someone can walk right into it.
'Cause it's not shown if they're planning on putting something above that.
Well, they would, with the building code, they would have to. And I'm looking at the retaining wall, top of wall 656, and the bottom appears to be 1. So yeah, 5 feet is the height.
Jonathan, you there?
Yes.
Okay, were you looking up something?
Oh, did you not hear? Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
The top of the wall is at a 656 noted, and the bottom of the detention is at a 651. So the height of the wall would be 5 feet, but also by building code standards, there would be a guardrail or some type of railing that would be required because of the building code.
Come.
And
Rob, do you have any other questions?
I did, sorry. Has there been any discussion about how deep these are and about how they're raising that road up in the past?
There has been some, but limited discussion on actual key points. The discussion really has been how those common areas were established. So going back to like the St. Louis County map, there were a few low points that showed like blue, meaning stormwater. So that common ground that you see on the screen right now is a current low spot currently. Regarding, yeah, I'm sorry. Something else.
Well, I guess I was also wondering if there were any of the adjacent residents that were concerned about, the road being built up so high compared to the existing ground now.
I know there are letters from different neighbors within the packet, and I could take a quick look at those if any of those reference that. I know, I believe in generally a few residents, or at least one resident over time, did mention the concern about a transition and what's going to be there. I believe that's as far as I've seen, sort like hearing public comments on that.
Okay.
But that is part of the staff report on one of the pages, and I believe, I mean, there is a big, there is a big change. The code calls for 10 feet if you have a residential street between the rears or a side. So they do have 13 feet. There would be some type of street tree requirement there. Now, is that, I mean, that's what code calls for. How does that actually perform under how this will actually look? I really couldn't tell you, but the code does call for at least some standards with street trees that they should be fully compliant with. And as you guys noted, there would be maybe a fence along the retaining wall. But other than that, that's all I really have seen in that area or heard from.
Carlos, did the architect or the designer want to come and address
Yes,
us?
as soon as, if there's any further questions on those, and I think they're all good questions. And there, I'm going to bring Mr. Faulkner over, promote him to panelist. And then Mr. Faulkner, if you can let me know who else on the team. Bear with me 1 second, he's getting transferred over.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Faulkner, you should be fully on. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you very much, Carlos.
And Mike,
Thank
before,
you, Madam
before in there, I
Chair,
know,
for allowing me.
Mike, and just beforehand, I know I have Mr. Jokers is on, the S steps are on, Mr. Lapp and some of the neighbors, and I think Mr. Jaffe. Is there anybody else immediately parted for your presentation to transfer over?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
Okay, Faulkner, do you
Okay,
want to
if
go
I
ahead?
could, I'd like to try and go over some of the concerns and. Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd like to go over and talk about some of the comments that were made by the commission members. I think number one is this property has been surveyed. And as far as that one individual that had indicated an issue, we'll be happy to meet with him. But this is a property that's surrounded by plats that have been recorded. We've went out and found all the corners for all of the record corners that are out there, and we've performed an out boundary survey on this property. We've actually got an alto survey on this property. So we know that the points that are out there are correct, and we will stand by those. But we will be willing to talk with any property owner that has concerns over those locations. As far as the wall, yes, there was one individual that had indicated a concern about the wall, but his concern was more into what the wall was actually going to be and its color. And as we stated in the hearing, we'll be happy to reach out to that individual. And since he will be looking directly at that wall and discuss what type of color he would like to see along that wall. And of course, we'll also pass that by the city to make sure that the city approves on the color also. But it's going to be a modular block wall, so therefore it can be in many different colors. So we'll be discussing that with the property owner, since he'll be most directly affected by the visual of that wall.
Mr. Faulkner, if you don't mind,
And
because
other than that, hopefully
if you don't mind, real quickly, as you look at the wall in that, so it looks like on the southern end, the road is at a 662 elevation and runs to a 660 and then back to a 662. It's my understanding this is where that ravine kind of runs through, correct? So the existing grades really fall real quickly at that point,
That
then
is correct.
rise. Okay, and then the intent of the road is to keep it at, really it stays as a 662. It does dip a little to 660, but back at a 662. The elevations back here along the detention kind of are start dropping off at it looks like about 656 here, but it's back here that the wall,
Yes.
I would assume it's within a 35-foot point, gets to its deepest part and then starts to rise behind the frame garage off of that property off of Dealman. I'm not identifying, noting that this is or commenting regarding the aspects of the design, but just to make sure if there is something that needs to be noted regarding this, because there is the existing grades drop because there is some type of ravine that runs through right in the middle. This road will kind of follow that, but not dip as the existing natural grade is in there. It also will serve for the kind of like the upper end of the detention area here and there. But is there more? I think that's what the commission member is asking, what's driving that design and that height. If you can kind of address that a little bit
Well,
more. And then again,
it will be the street grades, and it will be the street grades and the criteria for the design that this in their subdivision regulations that dictates what we can do as far as the K value in the curve. I know I'm getting a little technical, but the actual K value, which is the sag of the curve, we're required to maintain a minimum K value in there. So to get to one point to the other, we still have to meet that criteria. So that governs for is how the actual road will be placed in there. So, and we did have out and investigate this, and we did submit to the Corps of Engineers to first see, before we ever started this development, the plan on this, to verify that drainage way was a non-jurisdictional or non-core jurisdictional waterway, and it is not.
Terrific. Okay. Mr. Faulkner, do you have anything else?
I'll be happy to answer any other questions.
Mr. Faulkner, I did have a question that was forwarded about the depth of lot 1 on those dimensions, and just to make sure that I understand it correctly. It's gone from 100 feet wide to, if I got this correct, from the 25-foot setback line, it's 98 feet to the property line right here. You got 98 feet plus the 25 feet for a grand total now of 123 foot depth. That's 23 feet beyond the code criteria.
That is correct. That is correct. that would put the house about 28 feet. I'm sorry, will be an additional 12 and a half foot off of the right of, or off of the 25-foot setback. So we'll be at 38 foot off of the right of way. But to answer your question, Carlos, yes, that distance now is 98 foot. And that was due to discussing with MSD and allowing us to have that 30-foot setback off of the high water, that it could be to the house and the driveway could exist within that area, which afforded us the opportunity to flip Lot 2's house, which then allowed us to move that over the 13 to 15 foot that have allowed us to move that area into Lot 1.
Great. Mr. Faulkner, do you have anybody else who wanted to talk to us this evening? Anybody else on your team?
I think they're here to answer any questions that may come up.
All right. Anybody on the commission have any questions for Mr. Faulkner or anybody else on his team?
I do, Carol. And I just wanted to ask Mr. Faulkner.
Go ahead, Rob.
Are you guys planning on putting some fencing around the proposed retaining wall, around the detention ponds?
Yes, there'll be a fence will be required. I believe your requirements require any fence at 5 foot or any retaining wall needs a fence. So we'll be looking at putting a fence along
Great.
those retaining walls.
Okay, just making sure.
Anybody else? Okay. Carlos, do we have anyone in the audience who wanted to address us this evening?
Yes, I have Mr. Lapp, who also submitted a question, but I'll let him then ask. Mr. Lapp, I'm going to promote you to panelist.
And I'll just remind our speakers this evening that we're asking public comments to please be sure that you keep your comments brief, to the point, and you stay within the 3-minute time frame.
Thank you. It's Mark Lapp, 515 Dealman Road. I saw on the revised submission discussion of a landscaping plan along the east side. Mr. Faulkner, can you address what you have in mind? What's my view going to be? What's the buffer going to be? What is going to be in front and in back of that retaining wall by way of vegetation?
Mr. Lapp, I'll interject quickly here. The design and the landscaping and so on will come before this commission as a much later part of the process. And so we will be taking a look at that, but certainly not at the preliminary subdivision stage.
Okay, I understand. And I will call Mr. Faulkner to please meet me out there to look at the boundary line and satisfy my question about what's observable by me and what I see on the plat, and to answer my questions about the composition and location of the retaining wall. I'll do that. Thank you for that offer, Mr. Faulkner.
That'd be terrific. Thank you.
And Chairman, if I may interject, I'd be glad whether it's Jonathan or myself coordinate with Mr. Faulkner and Mr. Lapp at meeting on the site. I'm assuming that the property markers are in place. And if Mr. Faulkner, if we can coordinate a time to meet out there with Mr. Lapp to kind of review that. In addition to that, and I know the chair had spoke regarding to the landscaping. The landscaping is called out by code. The when the council adopted the subdivision ordinance, they also adopted specific criteria of what type of landscaping would be put in place within that 13-foot wide common ground. So there's no discrepancies or no arbitrary decisions in the process. I can forward you a copy of the required landscaping that will be placed in that common ground. And I've checked with the petitioner to make sure if there were any issues with that criteria. And at this point that there was none.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lab. Carlos, is there anybody else?
All right, I know there are several representatives of both of the property owners and such. If anybody else wants to speak, if they can raise their hand. Okay, Chairman, seeing none, again, there are none noted. We do have a revised plan set that you received PDF copies today. And there we've kind of gone through those reviews. I think they address the core issues or a majority of the discussion comments that we heard over the past 3 meetings, which was regarding specifically Lot 1. There were some good questions brought up today as we got close to more specific to the grades in there, but those will be handled through subdivision improvement plans. The question before the commission is whether the commission is comfortable with the design. If enough emphasis has been put in about the expectation for the design of the home on Lot 1, which, again, in the previous 2 meetings, there was quite a bit of discussion on there. The other things have been addressed. There's still 2 issues that are kind of outside of the control of this permitting or the preliminary plat process. One, of course, is the retaining wall in there. The commission doesn't have authority to approve the retaining wall as one wall. That's something that the commission would have to refer to the Board of Adjustment in there. And I think talking with Mr. Faulkner, that it would be something they would pursue in there. And if it's not approved or authorized, they would just continue with the design of curing that wall, but they're concerned of how that would impact that garage. Secondly, would be under our Chapter 422 stormwater management. We put that ordinance together in an effort to facilitate and manage stormwater that's generated by new home construction within the environment that we were experiencing, and that was infill lots. When we're stuck with a lot where no other improvements are being proposed except within the boundaries of the lot, and how to minimize stormwater impacts on adjacent properties. And the ordinance works well. However, since its adoption, and that's probably been about 5 years, we never had an experience where now we're facing a subdivision which is assessing stormwater at a macro level. They're gone to MSD. They're providing detention systems on the site and such. And now Chapter 422 is saying, well, even though you're providing your own subdivision on-site detention, our infill lot requirements are going to require you for each individual lot to put additional detention. And that's kind of double dipping in the process. So it's not it doesn't impact the preliminary plat in any way right now, but it may be worth a conversation and discussion for the commission to consider some type of amendment. I don't like variance processes for these type of things because they're policy issues. That if you have a subdivision that provides, a macro level detention or stormwater management plan like this one does, that then there's some type of exemption about individual lot detentions at a micro level because these are already being accommodated. And again, when we put that ordinance together, they're taking in consideration all of this, and that Chapter 428 is just looking at an individual lot. And again, it's kind of double dipping in the process, with lack of a better explanation, because we never anticipated that we would get an 8-lot subdivision. And most properties have been subdivided, so it's rare that we see those. So, I talked with Mr. Faulkner about that, and I think, it's something that from the city level, we should have a continued discussion about that. And it doesn't impact their preliminary plat in any way, but it will become an issue we'll have to address as they pursue individual lot developments on there.
Hey, Carlos, this is Mike. Are you,
Yes, sir.
are you suggesting that the detention calculations have taken into account all the roof areas and what'll be coming out off the buildings, like the individual, what's required for individual lots, but that's already being taken care of on this macro level?
That's correct. In the preliminary plat, and as you get into the more detailed plans, and you have the paper copies of those, they're showing, all the downspouts, let's say in lot 1, are connected to a drainage system here that runs and releases into the common ground. And that happens to lot 1, lot 2, lot 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 go into the front in here. But the rear roof areas release at grade, but that's why they provided that undisturbed buffer area. So
Yeah, I do recall you saying this last time. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah.
So again, it's not an issue that needs to be addressed at the pre-plat level, but it will become an issue when they come in for the individual lots, unless we start looking at trying to provide an ordinance change.
But just by the fact that they're tied into a structure already, isn't it in fact being addressed at that point in time? So
it meets the spirit and the intent of Chapter 422. However, it's not compliant with Chapter 422 wording. We'd have to come up with some type of an amendment, but not necessarily saying an alternative. It's just an acknowledgement that the detention system is being provided in the common ground areas as opposed to on the individual lots.
Interesting problem to have.
but it's still going to be piped, right? We're still controlling it. The downspouts are still connected, and is that piped or is that just a swale back there? That's actually a physical structure there, isn't it? A pipe?
Yeah, on lot 2, on lot 2, there begins an actual inlet that leads into the common ground, also on 3 and on 4 as well.
So is it a pipe or is it a swale?
It's a pipe. However, one of the items that we would do look at are where the actual downspouts are going to be, because part of it is trying to lessen the overall water leaving, let's just say Olivet in general as an idea. The second component is where water from the downspouts into some pump and the hard space areas are impacting your neighbor at a lower point. So that's the item that we would look at a little bit more closely during the planning commission stage, if they, or during the community design review stage.
Jonathan,
So
this is.
we should get back to the preliminary plat issue. Does anyone have a motion or any further discussion about the preliminary plat itself?
This is Mike again. I do have a bit of concern about the first condition, if we could pull that motion back up. on
Absolutely.
the screen.
1 second. Sorry about that.
I would be, item number 1, design expectations for the proposed home on lot 1. I'm not sure about the other commissioners, but I think that's a bit vague. I think we've made all our expectations clear, but I don't know that it's clear with the way number 1's written. I mean, I'd be curious on what other commissioners think.
What what are you thinking would be better stated there, Mike? How might we better express that?
I guess the question is, I hate, is everybody else comfortable with this? I mean, we've made it pretty clear that we expect the house to, we at least have the appearance of a front elevation facing Old Bonham. I don't know that, if I read this 5 years from now and everybody's off this commission and that commission 5 years from now sees that, is it clear on what that expectation is?
I don't think it's clear. So I think maybe just state it just like you said, that we expect some, I mean, you said it very well, very clear and concise before.
So we're not designing houses at this stage.
No, we're not. I get that. I absolutely get that.
So
But
I
you
think,
want it, we want.
don't we
it
want to
involved.
express more that we hope that, or we expect that the lot one will be of a size and configuration that it would allow for a front-facing elevation towards Old Bonham?
Well, I think
Or-
that's what's happened at this point.
Okay,
I mean,
Or
So I'm not
design
sure.
elements that show, that would give the appearance of front elevations on both sides. I think we have similar examples of that in all of that.
so I guess I'm not sure how we would reword that.
Mike, you stated it very well, I thought, just before, where you said something about a design feature with elevation, given the appearance.
yeah, it's the expectation that the house will be designed with the facade facing Old Bonham as a front facade, or a front facade facing Old Bonham. It could have one facing the new drive lane too, but this would really literally be designed as a house with two fronts. So, and there was a lot of discussions over the last two meetings that that's what our expectation was. The lot's been reconfigured to allow for that. That's great. We heard a lot of concerns. I think they were all appropriate. I think the developer came back and the design team came back with addressing their ability to do that when the house is designed. We talked a lot about that. Yeah, that will be addressed when the actual house comes up here. But just saying design expectations for the proposed home on lot one just seems pretty vague to me. That's all. I mean, if everybody else is comfortable with it, I'm
not.
I'm not disputing. I'm just trying to understand how we would change it.
yeah.
I think we're setting ourselves up for future arguments if we leave it as is. So I like what Mike's suggesting.
Mike, would you like to make a motion and try some
I
wording
will
there?
give it an effort. Let's get moving.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Please.
A motion to approve the petition for a preliminary subdivision plat for an 8-lot subdivision of the property grounds currently addressed as 9411 Old Bonham Road and 9415 Old Bonham Road as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated December 17th, 2020, subject to any staff conditions noted herein, with the note that item number one, that clarifying that the design expectations for the proposed home lot number one is there will be a front facade, the appearance of a front facade facing Old Bonham.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, we're ready for a roll call vote. Okay, Carlos, did you want to read the roll?
Absolutely. And I'm gonna, bear with me one second. Because we like these to be part of the video. So Commissioner Rich,
Yes.
Commissioner Saunders,
Approved.
Commissioner Spielgugelas,
Approved.
Commissioner Lewis,
Approved.
Commissioner Jurgel,
Approved.
and Commissioner Wagner.
Yes.
And the motion passes 6-0. I believe I caught everybody. The listing of participants flips as everyone talks. So I think I got everybody in the process. The other thing, Chairman, I had a question regarding the front yard setback along Old Bonham and what that measurement was, and it is 25 feet, which is the code minimum. So, and it is reflective accordingly. So the setback along Old Bonham Road is 25 feet.
Great. Okay. We're ready to move on to new business. And the first petition item is 13 Heather Hill Lane. Petition type is site plan, community design, and concept stormwater management plan review. Descriptions for size variation for pool and patio. Petitioner is Don Craigmeyer with Green Guys, and the property owner is Busker Miracles Trust.
Madam Chair, if you could bear with me a minute, if Mr. Trejo could check the attendees and make sure anyone that is on this is in the correct category of not whether they're a participant or a listener.
I am doing it as we speak, so bear with me one second. All right, so beforehand, I think Jonathan's got a quick presentation. Jonathan, are you controlling it from your computer or from mine here?
No, I can, so I'm gonna start screen sharing. Okay, and good evening to the members of the Planning Commission. My name is Jonathan Roper, as established already, but my name is Jonathan Roper, and I will be going through the first of two petitions for new business. The first is a pool and patio accessory structures at 13 Heather Hill Lane. For this, what is being considered, and excuse the date on the bottom here. The size of the overall, the overall square footage of the patio space on site and the overall accessory structure area on the site is being requested to exceed what is permitted administratively. So this is 13 Heather Hill Lane, where currently the site has a rear patio in the back here. And they would like a 600 square foot pool in the back, along with a paver patio around it on three sides, along a little bit of a walkway going this way. Under the code, Article 16, accessory structures and uses, a lot this size can have a pool up to 600 square feet, and that's the size that they're applying for. So that would conform, along with the setbacks, 10 feet from the rear, and it has to be at least within the side yard setbacks of the lot, so the pool would comply. Regarding the patio space, patios, it's not limited on the number of patios, but it's just the total area of a patio on site. So in this case, they're allowed the greater of 500 square feet or 5% of the lot area, and they do exceed the 5% of the lot area, as well as another part of the code looks at a site is permitted up to 10% of the area of the lot. In this case, they are also are looking to exceed that area as well. And looking at the request and what the impacts through site plan review, but also concept stormwater management plan review, we look at, and there is a slide under the Olivet residential redevelopment and design guidelines for accessory structures that gives guidance, which is a part of your staff report, about if you do have an accessory structure, you look at how many are on site, limited the visibility from the street, if screening or landscaping is needed, and a few other items there. So in looking between that and site plan review, staff finds that regarding the placement on the site, the nearest part of the patio, so this area up here, and staff's not including this walkway here because it's a walkway. So really the more main part of the patio is at least 30 feet from any side property line, which is also within the setback area, or also outside of the setback area. Also, the pool patio here is 10 feet from the rear, which is that's the minimum required by the accessory structures code. And looking at what type of impact on the side properties, staff mentioned it's at least 30 feet from property line and property line. There's a 20-foot area here that is privately owned by a property. One of the properties either on Heather Hill or I believe it's Stacy maybe. So there's an extra 20 feet between these people's property rear line and this one here. So the pool technically would be at least 30 feet away from any other property line that it has there, or surrounding. There's also a plethora of landscaping options on the site, from trees to bushes. You can see those on the north side here, the south side, these planting areas, to even the west side in the back. And you can see it a little bit more. So, in looking at the part of their stormwater plan, anything over 400 square feet of impervious needs some type of stormwater mitigation. So in this case, they're looking to take advantage of a little bit of a berm in the backyard here along the property line. So between the pool patio and this berm, they're actually going to put a little bit of a berm with rainscape materials to allow water to soak in a little bit more to this rock area with an under drain beneath that would discharge water in the southwest corner of the lot, which is where water is going currently. Also, water can run off into any of these planting beds that they have around. At this time, I have the petitioner is on the call, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or comments the commission may have at this time.
Any questions from anyone on the commission?
This is Mike. So what's the deal with that 20-foot strip of property behind it? It's not really, I guess, relevant to this, but what's the story with that? Yeah.
I think
I can answer that, Jonathan. It's a remnant strip of property that is, it's its own individual parcel, but it's under the ownership of Lot 2 Stacy, where the corner property that Jonathan has his mouse pointer located in there. It's a legal non-conforming lot. I'm making an assumption here. It must have been an old farmhouse road that went to the back before properties on either side got subdivided, but then became a remnant piece on its own. But it does have an individual owner. That is the property owner at number 2 Stacy, where Jonathan's mouse marker is at. And it is private property in there. Again, I think it was just a remnant piece that got left over. We have a couple of those throughout Olivet. There used to be that old standard lane off of Ramsgate that kind of buffered Arbor and Ridgegate, and some parts of Ramsgate too. in that process. My best guess, it was a farm driveway of some sort.
Interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
Any other questions from the commission?
Being
Carlos,
that- Go ahead, sure.
Carol, is it okay if I ask a question?
Sure, please.
Carlos, I think there was some comment about somebody that sent an email about where the fence line was
And
occurring, but I don't think that's going to impact it because we got that 20-foot strip in between, correct?
Well, correct. The email was from the owner of that 20-foot strip wanting to ensure
Oh.
that the fence would not encroach into that strip.
Okay,
And
okay.
I think administratively, when we go through the permitting process, we'll unless there's opposition from the commission, is ensure that there is some that it's not placed right directly on the property line, that they verify in there. And the reason that they were concerned, if you look at the survey information that was provided for 13 Heather Hill Lane, that's a part of your paper packets. It shows, even one of the adjacent neighbors has a fence encroachment onto 13 Heather Hill. It looks like it's going to get corrected with this. But it does happen. And we even heard that in the previous petition where the owner on Dealman Road was concerned about the accuracy of some of these surveys, which I can respect in that process.
Yeah, that'd be a real problem for lot 2 with all those adjacent properties. I'm sure they're going to see a lot of encroachments. So,
Correct.
Interesting.
All right. Chair, I do have, I believe, the petitioner. Is that Mr. Ringhofer?
Yes.
That would be great. Did you want to address the commission, sir?
Are you
Mr.
there?
Ringhoff?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, sorry, it was muted. I was trying to find the button. Very good. Yeah, hi, this is Eric Ringhofer. I'm with Green Guys. I'm the landscape architect who laid the space out. So yeah, I think Jonathan did a pretty good job explaining everything. We did pay a lot of attention to stormwater. I mean, that was one of the biggest things here, and just the efficiency of pavement spaces. I know the Busker family has 3 daughters, are all fairly active. So they, it's going to be a adult pool and a child pool. So trying to balance what they're looking to get for the house and then also being good neighbors was really important. So, we've got the space is really kind of dialed down to as minimal as we can. And then with all of the substantial plantings on the perimeter already, plus everything we're adding, plus all the additional stormwater remediation, I think we're going to make this stormwater actually better than it is currently. So, hopefully you guys see it that way as well. And, we're looking forward to contribute to the overall community with this project.
Sounds great. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Ringhofer?
Again, Chairman, just kind of noting, I apologize, but in the slide that Mr. Roper is illustrating right now, you can see where there is the property line boundary. Just Jonathan, on the detail on the planned bioswale section, you can see the property line and the intent of having offsite grading, and that might have been what triggered the email from the neighbor. That is something that you would have to coordinate with that neighbor.
Oh, that note is called out, not to interrupt, but there's no offsite grading.
Okay.
So the hatch pattern you're seeing in the dark line is the existing grade. And
Okay.
then so basically we're tying into nothing changing. So that was, to be clear, yeah, a major point of this is that everything we're doing is contained and helping out. So sorry for interrupting, but figured I'd save
No
the-
problem. I appreciate you for clarifying.
Anybody have any other questions? Carlos, anybody from the audience want to address us?
All right. There are 30 participants, attendees right now, and I believe one is the applicant for the next petition, Mr. Solomon or Mr. Jokers. If you have any comments, just show your hand.
Oh, Brian's actually with the birdie lane.
Correct. But just in case if you.
Oh.
All right, Chairman, I'm not showing any, so if,
Okay. Any further questions or discussion from the commission?
Here, I'd like to make a motion if that's okay with you.
I think that would be lovely.
Here, if I could interrupt real quick before you do.
Sure.
Sorry, the motion is correct. I just want to note, the recommended commission, conditions of approval actually are just a little bit different in your staff report. It just notes the authorization of the sizes that were discussed to go over, so the patio and the accessory structures. It doesn't change condition 1 or 2, it just notes that in the staff report motion, so a little bit different, but it doesn't change.
So do you prefer the conditions in the staff report or on the screen?
Staff report.
Okay, good. We'll reference that.
Okay.
So
Thank you,
Carol,
Jonathan.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the petition for community design, site plan review, and concept stormwater management plan review for a residential addition as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated December 17th, 2020, subject to any staff conditions noted therein, with a special note that the recommended conditions for approval are the ones that are listed in the staff report, not on the screen.
Thank you, Ron. Do I hear a
Commissioner
second?
Jurgen, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I believe that's supposed to be for a residential accessory structure. Is that correct, Jonathan?
Yes.
I'll agree to that amendment.
And do I hear a second?
I'll second.
And Commissioner Lewis seconds. Okay. And can we have a roll call vote?
Yes, bear with me 1 second because I do want to. All right. So all right. Commissioner Lewis,
Approve.
Commissioner Spiegelglass,
Approved.
Commissioner Saunders,
Approved.
Commissioner Rich,
Jody? Carlos, I think she's frozen.
it might be because it's not showing.
There she is. She's back.
Jody, are you there?
Yeah,
Jody,
she moved.
Commissioner Rich,
Approved, sorry.
Ah,
Commissioner Jurgel,
Approved.
and Commissioner Wagner.
approved.
And the commission passes, it's passed unanimously 6-0.
Terrific.
Thank you all.
Great. We're ready for our next item. What's that? What's that?
Correct. And I'm gonna let Jonathan kind of, I think he's gonna, there you go.
Okay, just want to read it. It's 22 Crosswinds Drive. The petition type is site plan, community design, and concept stormwater management plan review. The description is for a new single-family home. The petitioner is Mark Manlin with Daiquium 913 LLC. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly. And the property owner is Daiquium 913 LLC. And is it Jonathan or Carlos? Talk to us about that.
I'll start it off and then take it over to Carlos. So, thank you. We have the second new business item, the new house at 22 Crosswinds Drive. It is a 2-story building with a front entry garage that's recessed and a side entry garage as well. It's in the Crosswinds Bonnier subdivisions where there's a mix of existing ranch style houses with more shallow roof pitches and newly constructed, including by the petitioner currently, some new homes on the street as well. And looking at the community design review, staff finds that the proposed house is adjacent to 2 one-story houses that have pretty shallow roof pitches. this house, the massing component and the excuse me, the roof transitions would comply with the guidelines as the two nearest pieces to the sides are either a hip roof or they're really a one-story component there. The item that staff would say that would not comply regarding the front elevations, you can see, would be the 50% masonry or brick. The guidelines call under materials call for at least 50% of masonry or brick on the sides, as well as it to wrap around on a side elevation. One of those side elevations is in question regarding that wraparound in the brick. So you can see the masonry and the lower edge here, which is not 50% as the guidelines call for. Staff honestly needs clarification from and guidance from the commission on this side elevation here. So here is that main wall elevation, but here's also this piece over here that staff was just really not sure that if it was the commission's intent for the masonry to be on this wall as well as that wall, or is that fine? But staff's bringing it to the commission's attention. Also, staff just points out this elevation as one that staff is just noting it to the commission because it's not the largest wall or the most significant, being that it's a one-story. The roof is a hipped roof. There are a few windows on it, and there's not a big elevation change that exposes the basement and the lower level. So staff had some, it just pointed out to the commission as if it was maybe a longer wall or a two-story wall with just two windows, it would definitely be not compliant with the guidelines, but staff's just not sure. So we're just pointing it out there. That was really it for the design component. Regarding a little bit to the site, so they have the existing house and the new house are similar in where they sit on the site. You could see that the driveway is still on the north side of the lot, and the housing footprint, though, is quite larger. The hill back here off the Chevy Chase neighborhood slopes towards the house, towards the lot. So this area back here is higher than the top of foundation. There are two stormwater inlets back here that some of their, and you can see the drainage area here. They have an A and a B, which kind of splits perfectly just about along the middle here, which is shown under the proposed as a C. They're noting that it is draining towards this inlet back here, but there's also an area inlet also around here too. They have their full rooftop detention in a stormwater area in the front yard. Staff would just note just two things about that. One, and we'll get to a slide with tree protection. As their whole roof area is, as their stormwater detention is located here, it is 10 feet from the driveway, but there's a, I believe it's a 36-inch caliber tree in the front yard that we'll get to in a second that you really don't want to put a stormwater detention next to a tree that might impact the root system or the health of the tree over time, because that's a lot of water you're now putting into the ground to a tree that previously hasn't. So honestly, I don't know what type of tree it is or if it's okay for the tree or not, but, and you also don't want to, the sole reason to take down a tree is not to put a stormwater detention area. So staff notes that as well. But regarding concept stormwater impacts on the adjacent houses, they are showing a little bit of a high point here with water going along the property line towards either the street or these inlets in the back. And the top of foundation really does not tower over either of these properties here. There is, so I would say the most major thing on this site would actually be the relocation of a sanitary sewer line. this is Chevy Chase neighborhood here. There exists about I believe it's a 10-foot or 10-inch pipe that goes along the property line from the back, and currently it actually juts out at an angle towards this southwest corner here of the lot. As you can see, the house, there's a 10-foot easement, and the house is not over it, but pretty close to it. The petitioner is looking to actually relocate that to this easement here, from being where C is to closer to that, angling towards the southern property line and traveling up their line within a 10-foot easement. Currently, they do have their plans are under review with MSD for that relocation. Staff has not received any indication of that MSD has approved that plan from them yet. So if the commission were to consider approval, it would be a condition that MSD approval for that, of course. But staff also notes that with this easement, so the sanitary line is the flow line, and I'm gonna go pretty closer into it. The flow line, let's say this area inlet right here is a 582, and the contours, you can see a 592 right here, a 591. So this flow line is literally 10 feet down in the ground. So there's a pretty substantial dig that you're going to have along this property line here, but also in this back here. And the real concern, of course, besides someone's house, is also this driveway back here. There's an asphalt driveway that actually goes to the property line. That's at an elevation of 596. So if they're digging this pipe here, staff just wants to make sure that at the bottom of a hill, as you have, the bottom of the hill is already 5 feet down from this point to this point, but you also go down an additional 10 feet, you're 15 feet in the ground, and hopefully that you're not going to mess with, this stability of this driveway over here.
Hey, Jonathan, this is Mike.
Yes, sir.
Are you mixing up your sanitary lines and your storm lines? Because I think the one that said, and maybe I'm wrong, but that's the sanitary line you're talking about there. And I think the one you were pointing out is if it's a area inlet, that's a storm line. So I think they're two different lines. Yeah.
No, I see. Yes. You are totally correct. Let me correct myself on that one. This is the flow line here. So I mentioned it was a 582 flow line. So where did I just? Oh, I know what I did. There we go. I noted a 582. So I'm sorry. The flow line's 586. So it's okay. So it's 5 feet down in the ground, not 10 feet. So same concern still exists, which is digging down deeper in the ground. It's not as deep, which is a good thing, but there's still some. There might be well, staff's just bringing it up. I don't know if there's anything to be concerned about, but staff's bringing it as just we want to make sure that the stability of this asphalt driveway is okay, as well as this easement is moving. They really need to coordinate with both of these neighbors and this neighbor regarding the placement of this easement and this sewer, because this is not something that's this is not a normal project for a single family house to happen. Usually you're not moving a sewer, especially along the property line. So all the other neighbors that are abutting this easement need to be coordinated with by a petitioner. Going on, one of the items that staff's looking at, and we are going to ask the engineer for verification, the current driveway, they're noting it's a 4.25% slope, And one of the, I believe Mr. Trejo had some calculation that was taken, and the calculations that were coming out was off. It was actually a little bit steeper than what was being calculated. So there's been a condition of approval that notes some spot grade elevations that are being asked for if it is truly 4.25, because I believe it was around 5 or 6%, which gets much steeper, is what was being calculated by staff at the time. And this also notes, and finally, tree protection. So the guidelines do call for trying to save trees or maintaining healthy trees, especially. There are 3 trees just to point out. There's one here along the north property line that they're indicating that, well, they're showing the root system around, which the house is probably going to be impacting that root system. But they would really need to talk to this neighbor to the north about it, because there's nothing worse than something happens and then the neighbors say, well, where's my opportunity? And there just becomes an issue. So we want to make sure that, you know, they're fully acknowledging that tree, but also these 2 that are around the street here. One, well, they are showing in the red here, red boxes here. That's the tree protection fence. And the green shows relatively the caliber or the root system of the tree and the canopy. I know the tree protection, I know it says not to scale, but the sections that are shown on the site plan and also on the site plan detail don't jibe together, because, you know, this one's showing it's beyond the drip line for the tree protection fence. This one's showing it's like 3 feet by the tree. So they are going to have issues with the placement of the detention with that tree, and also probably that sewer line and keeping that tree. With that, there are different conditions of approval that staff looks at. The street curb inventory and driveway slope. I'll take the street curb inventory. That was a newer one that was also on the other petition that just came to the commission at 828 Newcastle. So that was a newer one, but to make sure that the director of public works is coordinated into a meeting about the street health and that curve there. Also to verify that the driveway will not exceed 4.25%. If they should take a look at reconfiguring the detention to lessen that impact on the tree. Otherwise, in a couple of years, you just might have a dead tree due to water or the impact. That's a lot more expensive to take down. Discuss the tree preservation with the neighbor to the north, the one on the property line. Location of sump pump. Want those to be in an area that's not going to discharge at the neighboring house. The sewer relocation. So according to the city of Olivet, chapter 405 subdivision regulations, any utility easement needs to be needs to be applied for through a vacation. And so this would still need to have a vacation through the plan commission and also a public hearing through the city council for that vacation. So this would be an approval of that, but also MSD approval. And finally, the other conditions, the normal conditions of approval. With that, I'm open for any questions or comments the commission may have, and the petitioner is here this evening.
Any other questions by the commission? Jonathan, do you have, or Carlos, do you have anything to add to that?
I think, going back to that first slide, or really the questions, we're waiting responses from the developer needs to respond back to the commission. These are reflective in the earlier review letter that was issued by Jonathan once we had received the application, and they were part of the staff report. So I do have Mr. Manlin, and again, the goal here is, he needs to respond to these points. And Chairman, if it's okay, I'd be glad to.
I'd like to hear from Mr. Manlin if nobody else has any questions at this point. Why don't you bring him in?
Jonathan, I am going to, let's see, bring you back. Bear with me.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good, good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. As you spoke, I took notes, and I'll just kind of work my way down the list. I guess for starters, the masonry issue, I can tell you that we have been working with some people. The house is under contract, and we've looked at a number of different houses throughout the area, and I can tell you that there were a couple of houses that inspired this particular design. One being 8 Lynn Court. I provided to Jonathan a couple of days ago some photographs of some various houses in the area, one being 8 Lynn Court. And as you can see, that's on the bottom right. That's got a kind of a knee wall height of stone that goes across the front. And then as it proceeds up, it looks like it's hardy board and maybe a combination of some board and batten. I do want to note that on the street, we have built 2 other houses, one being at 11 Crosswinds Drive, and that's one of the pictures that's being shown, the upper right. And that house does not have masonry. It's a hardy board home, complete hardy board with board and batten up in the gable areas. I guess my overall comments would be, we're trying to accomplish a kind of a craftsman modern farmhouse style. And I don't think that this elevation is deficient in terms of capturing that desired architectural style. And I think just merely adding additional stone or brick or masonry wouldn't enhance the appearance in my opinion. We think it's unique, but that being said, it is in sync with other homes that have been built recently. And again, I provided some photographs of some newer built homes to illustrate that. Secondly, the tree issue. I know that there's the gravel filter that's in the front there. I know there was initially some concern that it was too close to the driveway, and I instructed my engineer to relocate it. I'd certainly be willing to give further consideration to moving it further away, but I can tell you that the location of it is not random. There's a thought process that's involved with that. And again, if we could modify it and get it further away from the tree, we would certainly be open to that for sure. The other possibility would be perhaps to have a licensed arborist look at the tree and the site plan and its proximity to that particular area, the detention area, and get their expert opinion. So we can go either way on that. The sewer issue, we've gone through the process with MSD. We've gotten comments back. The comments from MSD were I would characterize as minor in nature. We were supposed to get back comments today. We were hoping that they were final comments and that we can proceed with an actual approval. As of, I guess, 3 o'clock this afternoon, I had not received confirmation from my engineer, but MSD's comments are forthcoming, and it could be as soon as tomorrow. Again, the basic design has gone through the process. What we're proposing on the site plan is more or less what ultimately is going to be approved. And certainly we understand that any house being built on the lot's going to be conditional upon that approval. Driveway slope, again, that's something that we can look at. I do see a notation that the engineer had called out a 4.25 slope. I don't know what the issue would be if it would be slightly steeper, but that's not to say that we can't get it into compliance with that if it is in fact a requirement. Tree protections are certainly things we can take a closer look at. We want to try to maintain as many of the trees as we can. I guess the one question I would have is, you've alluded to discussing with the neighbors about, I guess, the excavation process as it relates to the sewers. How do you envision that? What exactly is that? How does that work? Are we supposed to reach out to them, get something formal back from them? Any details you can provide on that would be helpful. I guess I don't know if you want me to get into it, but the basic house is a 5-bedroom, 4.5 bath, approximately 3,800 square feet on the first and second floor with a finished lower level. As Jonathan alluded to, it's mostly a hip roof. So on the periphery, the outside of the houses, the roofs are sloping away, which I think helps with the mass. There's a lot of windows, natural light. This design evolved over a period of time of working with these people. And I'm certainly happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commission? No questions?
Well, Carol, I'll say something. I personally
Okay,
like,
go ahead.
I personally like more stone, but I'm not the architect of the group. And if everybody else is okay with it, I think I could be fine with it, as well. It's a nice home. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I just, I was looking for these photos online, but I think these are all the ones that were examples that were provided were all newer homes, recently built. I could take it.
Yes, they are. As I said, the one, I guess that's the inspiration for this particular house was at 8 Lynn Court. And I think that was just completed within the last few months or so.
Gotcha.
Hey, Rob, yeah, they're in our package. Maybe you've seen them, but they're in the package we got. There's 4 of them.
Gotcha. Okay, let me check.
Yeah.
I'll check that out.
Yeah, this is Mike. I'll throw my 2 cents in. I think the elevations looks fine. I don't know that we're gaining anything by asking for some more stone across. There they are. For most more stone. I think given the architectural style he's trying to achieve, I think he's done a nice job.
Good.
Any other questions from the commission? I have one comment that I'd like to make. I'm a little concerned about the number of outstanding issues here. I'd like to see things a little more tied down or settled, if you would, before we actually approve. Is there a reason that you're pushing this?
we're not pushing it. I mean, actually, this has been a process that we've been going through for several months. I mean, we're obviously anxious to get started. I believe that the issues at hand are issues that are pretty easily resolved. As I mentioned, I think the main one is the sewer, but that one should be resolved hopefully in the next couple of days or so. Some of these issues regarding tree protection and the slope of the driveway, I mean, that's kind of a normal situation that we deal with on most houses. And you know, certainly I know in the past, you know, I've met with the staff. I don't know if there's still a stormwater consultant that works with the city, but I've met with Carlos and Jonathan in the past with a stormwater consultant. We've been able to navigate through the process, and that's all been after the planning commission's been, you know, involved and approved. So I don't think, at least based upon my experiences, that we're asking for anything that we haven't done before, and I don't think it's unique to us.
Okay. Does anybody else have a similar reaction, or are you guys pretty comfortable?
The only one I was going to ask about, this is Mike, is the tree protection plan, and just confirm that your plan is to meet what's on the detail and that's what's shown on the site plan, and do a tree protection that's close to the drip line versus the just around the trunks of the trees.
Certainly, yeah. I recognize, understand that we've got to cover the drip line above, or not above, but we got to cover the drip line. So we would most certainly do that.
Hmm.
Anything else? Any other questions?
There is one thing, Chairman, as Carlos, the planning director, just to make sure that is clear. I mean, there is an easement that runs through this property right now in an angle that they're proposing to amend. I think Jonathan's noted it in that slide. That easement, it looks like it is an MSD easement, and the utility will be realigned in there, but that easement still exists, and we're not authorized to issue a permit for a structure over an easement. So I want to make sure that it's clear, because it's noted in the report that the petitioner is going to have to submit a vacation plat to get rid of that easement, and I'm sure MSD is going to require an easement for the reconfigured line. You know, those issues will have to get addressed. Because as a future buyer runs title through here, that easement's going to exist and it will pose a problem.
Carlos, of the 4 or 5 different utility companies required, I believe we've already got 2 or 3 from them, and we're working on, I believe, Spire and maybe Missouri American. They've all been given the notice of vacation. And you know, I'm aware of that, and certainly I understand that we've got to vacate the easement before the house can be built, and we're going to do that.
Right. And I just want to make sure, because the city has a defined process in its code to vacate that easement. And again, I think we can work with the developer as he's going through the process, but he will have to follow that process, and that ultimately gets approved by council.
Carlos, is that something that typically would happen next before we proceed with house design? Or how does that work in terms of process?
It doesn't necessarily impact the commission in its review, because the commission has no authority to vacate the easement in this process. What it does do, it poses a problem for the actual issuance of a permit. And there we'll have to work closely with the developer to make sure all things are in line and in place for that easement vacation.
Yeah, and they can't vacate the easement until that sewer line's relocated. So it's
correct.
There's a lot of work that needs to be done. They need to get MSD approval first to relocate the line and get the new easement accepted and the old one vacated.
For sure. And as I said, the process has been started. I think we're very close and certainly are aware of what needs to be done, and we will do it.
And then lastly, under the tree protection, Jonathan, if you can go back, and this is one of the things, because, you know, the city needs to, at the council level and the legislative level, give us a little bit more clearer direction regarding tree preservation. Right now, we have guidelines that Jonathan is referencing and does really well about trying to preserve or keep the integrity of a lot of the tree root systems and the overhangs. But understand, when you look at the plan, I mean, there is a sewer line that's right next or adjacent to the trunk of the tree at the southwest corner. You know, it's going to be in the root system. There are also the detention system that's underneath the tree canopy on the tree, kind of centered there, that on the other side of the tree is a water line. So while we can do our best to try to preserve them or minimize disruption, they're going to get impacted. And it always comes down to whether, we try to do our best to preserve those trees now, or we're dealing with a property owner 5 years from now saying that your tree's dead and you need to remove it. And I don't know which is best. I mean, but I think the reality of it is the way this design is set and these existing trees where they're placed, there are utilities that are pretty close and adjacent to them, that whether new construction or even if I think they just replaced the water line on the street, they're going to get, they're going to dig near the root system. There really isn't any other option or alternative. It would be better to consider a tree swapping, a caliper for the number of trees or something, as to try to say we're going to try to preserve them, knowing that 5 years, I don't know what the health of the tree is going to be. Now, if the developer is going to have an arborist kind of go through the process, that's fine. But that sewer line is going to be deep, it's going to be wide, and it's pretty close to that trunk.
How does the tree swapping work? The only tree, I guess, for me that would be of concern would be the top left corner there. How does that work? If we decided to remove that, how does that work? Do we have to replace it with an equal amount of caliper? Is that how it works, Carlos?
There's really no guiding principle. I'm not sure what the caliper is, or right now, Jonathan, you may know it in hand, and it would be up to the commission. I think it shows like 36 inch. The expectation of providing 6-inch caliper trees in the front yard is, while it may be nice, this is a pretty tight spot, and there's still, again, utilities that run through there, and it may be, for 36-inch. Jonathan, do you have thoughts before I throw out something, or past practices that you're aware of?
No, not really thoughts. It's really more so, and this is probably a standard. And I guess I would say, in going through tree preservation, because some of the others we really haven't gone through this detail. I only note it from the point of, as they are noting, to keep these trees to minimize disturbance. If they were to get rid of all trees, like other developers a lot of times do, to replant trees, there's really leave it up to their discretion. Honestly, they could plant young trees, they could landscape the property and make it look nice, but really don't have anything other than that. So,
and Mr. Manlin, and that might be something, in exchange, if you and your client sit down and put together a landscape plan, and if the commission's comfortable with staff, looking at it, again, that the tree that you're referring to there, it's a 36-inch caliper tree. I don't, anticipate that you would replace, 36-inch, maybe in exchange for 3 trees
Yeah.
with 2 to 3-inch calipers.
Yeah, come barreling down the street with a 36-inch tree. Yeah, right.
Well, and there'll only be so much space and room for the plantings too. So, because you have the pop-up emitter. I mean, there's a lot of tree ordinances are pretty complex when you take into consideration all the other infrastructure that goes around. You could, and again, we'd be glad to work with you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm happy to discuss it further. I've got a long history with the city, and if we decide on something, it'll get done.
It seems to me, Carlos, that looking at the possibility of replacing that tree might be a good idea, because I don't really see that it's going to survive. Maybe a great tree, but
Yeah, I mean, again, I have the confidence in Mr. Manlin that we can work together and come up with some solution. And again, I think, given that it is pre-sold, you have a client that also probably is going to have some interest in it too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd love for them, if possible, to have some input if we can do that.
Jonathan,
Great.
you're comfortable with that, sir?
Yes.
Anything else from the commission? Carlos, do you have anybody else in the audience who wants to speak to us?
Let me take a quick look. And we have one attendee. And if there's any questions, if you can just show your hand. And while we were waiting, Mr. Manlin, we did talk, Crosswinds is a private street, and the city is working on an effort to coordinate with private streets a little bit more closely during construction in there. So we will require a meeting with the trustees, the public works director, and yourself as one of the conditions in here to kind of inventory the street before construction starts.
Okay, sure.
And Chair, there is no further questions.
Okay.
Carol, I'd like to propose a motion.
Yes, Rob.
I'd like to propose a motion to approve the petition for site plan, community design, and concept stormwater management plan review for a new single-family home at 22 Crosswinds Drive as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated December 17th, 2020, subject to any staff conditions noted herein.
Is there
Second,
a second?
second,
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Carlos, can we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Lewis,
Approve.
Mr. Spiegelglass,
Approved.
Commissioner Saunders,
approved.
Commissioner Rich,
Approved.
Commissioner Jurgel,
Approved.
Commissioner Wagner,
Approved.
and the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Happy holidays.
You too. Okay, Carlos, we're moving on to discussion items. And the first item is urban agriculture, formerly quality of life. And as I understand it, we are deferring that. Is that correct?
Correct. We are going to have continued staff discussions with the city attorney, and Ms. Sondag is coordinating a meeting with Mr. Martin to continue some of the discussion regarding the directive of the council, the placement of the ordinance in the proper sections, and then the comments that were discussed at the commission level with Mr. Martin last week. So the goal here is we hope that on January 17th, we'll have a kind of an informal public hearing, because we're going to send out notifications next week to property owners that we know either have hives, chicken coops, or native vegetation areas in there that would be impacted. This includes bamboos and roosters. in there and give them an opportunity to address the commission if they'd like. And then on the 21st, the council's asked that, that if the commission can act on some form of an ordinance so they can consider that at their February work session. So that's a brief update. And I think from the city attorney's discussions that we had at last time, some of the issues he had brought up was specifically, whether this is best addressed under the zoning regulations or within the animal ordinance. That's one of the things we'll talk to him about, and what the overall directive and goal was of the council. Two, about the variations or variances, because I think what I've heard from the commission, there's strong support to have some process in there. And I think Mr. Martin wants to make sure that, is concerned to make sure that the process is not arbitrary and such. And then I know he was going to look into some information regarding the bees. There was some concerns about bees and impacts on some of the neighbors. And that's where we're at on that. If I missed anything else, let me know. But I think those were the three major topics of discussion with the attorney. And then we'll be back with January 7th, hopefully with a full draft, again, using the term draft, that the commission can start its review with hopes that we can get everything wrapped up by January 21st.
Great.
Any questions, Chair? Or?
I don't have any. Anybody have anything? Okay. We move on. Carlos, are we going to defer stormwater management?
We
Given
will
the hour?
in that process in there. And again, due to not to blame the pandemic for everything, but Jonathan is working he and I are kind of rotating in that process. And there, so it's kind of restricted time and effort of trying to collaborate and work on this. And in addition to that, Jonathan's leading an effort to implement the geographic information system with the city, and I'll let him talk a little bit about that when we get to the staff reports in there, because this, some of the success of this has been a lot of the data he's kind of presented to the commission as we've gone through the stormwater management process. So.
Great. Okay. We're going to move on to other business, and we have some meeting minutes to accept. Do I have a motion, or anybody?
So moved, so motioned. This December, receipt of the December 3rd meeting minutes.
Seconded if needed.
Great. We have acknowledgement of the meeting minutes. Reports. Carlos, you want to give us a planning department report?
Sure. We officially end the meetings for December. Last year, I think council did. This year, we got to. This is the last meeting of the year. What a year it has been. The first meeting for 2021 will be council, which will start with their work session. Then they'll have their regular meetings on the 12th and 26th of January. For PCDC, as we look forward to 2021, our first meeting will be the 7th, and then followed up by the 21st. Our February schedule is the 4th and the 18th. And again, we ask, understanding you are volunteers, but if you have any upcoming conflicts, just to give us a heads up in advance. The earlier we know, the better we can coordinate with the petitioners, or if we have to try to reschedule, which happens, we can do that in advance as opposed to waiting on that meeting date. So in there. We'll put together a 2021 schedule, for the full calendar year, looking at all the observances throughout there and to see if there's any conflicts. It was brought to my attention, of course, that that this week was Hanukkah, and there was discussion about having meetings through the observance in there, but it was my understanding the council had agreed that it was fine. There was a meeting on Tuesday. Well, there was a meeting the first day on Thursday. That was the Board of Zoning Adjustment, and then the council had a meeting Tuesday. Parks and Recs had a meeting Wednesday, and then of course ours was today. And there, so we appreciate everybody's participation and patience on that on there. Regarding city events, of course, COVID-19 and the pandemic. So we are under county public health orders, meaning that the city center is limited to visitors. We're doing by appointments only. The building staff is still running inspections, but with some limitations and criteria in there where we ask, if it's an unnecessary inspection, like a rental, that we can defer if it's currently occupied. If it's not occupied, we will do the inspections. We try to limit the number of people during an inspection to no more than one, and make sure that all doors and cabinets are open for the inspectors, so to minimize any touching, both for the protection of our residents and of course our inspectors. Municipal court is doing their meetings virtual, along with council, ourselves, and the zoning board of adjustment, and parks and recreation. The council approved necessary ordinances to provide some relief to liquor licenses, because the liquor licenses are usually based on a flat fee, regardless of sales. And of course, this was a unique year, and the fee structure doesn't change whether you were able to have access. If you were a bar, restaurant, versus a mobile station or central liquor. So the council this year adopted some criteria to provide some assistance for those that were not able to provide full access to their facilities throughout the year. In addition to that, council also authorized moving the collection of business licenses from January, February, to move those to April and May, in an effort to give our businesses more time to focus on other things, and as we round up and end this year, and give them more time to put together their licenses and all that. And I think that's a good thing on our end. Public Works, I think this was the last week of leaf collection. Dealman Road, the improvements are done. They won't be doing the surfacing until next spring. It's already gotten too cold, but if you take a look at it, and again, and going back to the strategic plan and our core goal and objectives about identity, economic development, open spaces, and transportation connections. And you can see that in play with that new bridge. It's got a really nice ample sidewalk. It's well defined. And there it's got, they were selective in the color of the railings and all that. It connects to the bike trail, and a lot of our goals are part of their policies, and as they do that, their improvements. Ashby Road Bridge, we have a hard time getting communications from County Highways and Traffic, but they've indicated that the intent of having that bridge completed is at the end of this year. So I hadn't received any updates in there, and I know as of today it still wasn't open. Parks and Recreation, your restrooms are closed for the season. Playgrounds are going through cleaning and disinfection, I believe, on a limited schedule, and now that it's gotten cold, it's kind of stretched. And the community center is closed to the public. Development updates, and see where I'll start here. The GRG Centennial Trail, that continues, and we saw part of that earlier this evening, part of the community center. The first phase of the Centennial Trail will be between Dealman Road along Napoleon and Indian Meadows Park, all the way down to Worson Park and up to Worson Road. And that is, design completion is pretty close to being done, and construction, of course, is hopefully by next year. But on the other side, the area between Olive, I-170 Olive, all the way up back to Dealman, that one's going to be a little bit slower. That's going to be phase 2, and they're still working on the design, but most importantly, the property acquisitions. This one includes, of course, the crossing along Hilltop. Olive Crossing, which is the Gateway redevelopment area. MSD is, of course, nearing completion of the line that's going to go underneath Olive, and there's been some road disruptions the past couple of weeks. And then they have a southern line that's going to go all the way to Lindley and Oak Estates, and they're just about off the ground on that end, but they're using that far tip or southern end of the development side as the staging area. So once that gets complete, the next steps are going to be the grading will commence on the site. They have a rough grading plan already approved by the city for implementation. We're aware of some of the shrubbery that's on the site grounds and all that, but it kind of helps keep the soils compacted in there. So it's one of these things, you know, we wish the progress of the development would moved a little bit faster, but you know, right now with some of that vegetation, it at least covers some of the dirt area and helps in minimizing some of the soil disruptions. But the big thing about this development is that at our council meeting on Tuesday, and the council liaison can provide some additional information. The developer requested the council to reconvene the TIF commission as he is looking to incorporate a multifamily residential component to the development. I'll let the council liaison kind of talk about that aspect. And I don't believe a schedule has been set. The city center redevelopment area, or now known as the Oliver, the parking structure is fully formed already. It's pretty neat because the footings for the apartments are pretty well defined. There's some aerial pictures on our website that show, you know, the layout, you know, of the structure coming in place. So it's kind of neat to see. All the other projects, Plant Haven, Easy Storage, Firestone, kind of on hold. Probably won't see activity till spring. Some of the issues being the pandemic and the impact on commercial retail specifically for some of these uses. But for the most part, we've in discussions with these developers, you know, they're still committed to the site. The ownership's still there. They're just, you know, kind of waiting for things to kind of turn around, but they still like the locations and their designs that they have in place. Outside of that, I'd be glad to answer any other questions. And again, kudos to Jonathan because he's getting our geospatial plan implemented, which includes the GIS, and I'll let him kind of address questions to that. I think it's pretty interesting.
Okay, Jonathan, you want to add to that?
Yeah, and thank you for those updates. So the Element Geospatial Plan, it looks at there's a lot of information that we already have, and it's really about taking the information, putting it not only with a map, as you see a lot of like our stormwater maps, but it's a process for information, but also a way to look at it, analyze it through a system called Esri software, one of the most advanced geospatial softwares in the world. So the city is going to get on board with that, launch that program in the early next year, and we'll have a few different changes that we'll roll out with the commission sooner or later. So, but that I'll give it over to our council liaison.
Thank you. As I always say, every meeting, Mr. Trejo always covers everything that I don't see why I need to be repetitive. Everything I was going to go over, they went over. So I don't really have much to add. The TIF request is from the developer for residential, and it has to go through its process. And we will see where it goes. We did execute the first reading for the cooperation with the Great Rivers Greenway. We will have some responsibility of maintenance. And I think as Mr. Trejo and maybe Ms. Sondag said, that we will be dealing with the construction aspect of that over by the community center site. Beyond that, last night I attended the Parks Commission meeting for my fellow peer, Ms. Weil, so I'll speak a little bit about that. They have been working hard with the city and city staff and our consultants with regards to what you were presented with and what you didn't see with regard to the park designs. And the park board have identified their goals. And as of last night, they're going to be working on Goal number 1, goal number 3, goal number 4, and goal number 5, which really deal with input for ongoing development and sports and recreation, getting to increase community engagement in the Alba parks and recreational activities, participating in parks long-range financial planning, because what we're doing and what you are allowing us to do within our parks and with our new community center, it's going to have a financial impact to us all. As well as support staff in the development of a multi-year park management plan. With that, that's really all I have to report. Again, happy, healthy to you all. God bless you. You know I love you. I so appreciate you. Take care.
Let's see, I need to ask you a question.
Go ahead, ma'am.
So the Olive Crossing site, how is the developer going to add the apartments that you're talking about here?
How is he going to add it?
Right. I mean, there wasn't what on the site that we have seen is he going to not build?
Lot
in order to
4 is the Lot 4 is the focus of the different design, and it's going from a business building, from my recollection, to residential. Is the request.
Okay. So is he saying he's not going to be building the grocery store? Is that what's on Lot 4?
He is not saying that at all. That's, go ahead. It was the business. Go ahead, Carlos.
Okay, so he's still planning to have the grocery store.
Not necessarily.
I'm just trying to figure out what else changing here.
The lot
what expressed
4,
last night, and I'm going to let Carlos go. What expressed last night is that's never off the table. The market drives. Carlos, you want to add to the other aspect of that question? Go ahead.
no, that's correct. I mean, he's still trying to pursue a grocer, but the placement of lot 4, which was the office structure and parking structure, he'd like to come back and change that to a residential structure. That'll have to come back to the commission to amend the conceptual plan.
Okay.
There's still continued pursuit for a grocer, but I think in this market, realistically, I'm not sure, but that's not my specialty. I know he's still looking to pursue it, but.
So is he thinking about not doing the office building?
One of the office buildings.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Again, lot 4. Lot 4 is that focus. Not the back one, but lot 4.
Just trying to understand what's changing.
Sure.
And that's part of the process. It will have to come back to the commission for the commission to look at those changes. It's not something that just can happen. The reconvening of the TIF commission, that's a whole separate subject about the financing of the project.
Right, that's a whole different issue altogether.
And if Ms. Sondak has anything to add, she's on here right now.
No, I think you covered it. Yep. It continues to be a work in progress.
Okay,
What's 5
anything
years
else?
after 20, folks? What's 5 years after 20?
Anything else anything else to discuss or bring up tonight before we close? Okay, then I'm going to adjourn our meeting at 10:08. Good night, everybody.
Thank you all.
All right, everybody be careful, be
Thank you.
safe.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
We'll go back, Rob.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Night, and I'm glad to be back, guys.
New Year's, guys.
Happy New
Appreciate
Year,
it.
everybody.
Welcome back.
Glad you're back, man.
Yeah.
Welcome back.